Hey everyone, George the Disney Italiano here, coming with my boys OG from Orange Grove 55 and Mr. Theme Park Conductor for the first time, coming on for a Citrico Central walk and talk. I also got my girl Abby with us, and we're basically just going to do what we do best here. We're going to walk around the park and do whatever we do on Orange Grove 55, but we're going to do it on location and show you the visuals of what we're talking about. And what you're looking in front of you right now is Sleeping Beauty Castle with the decor of the 70th anniversary celebration, decorations and what have you. So we're going to get into discussing a little bit about it, like what we like about it, some issues that may be arise. But Mr. Theme Park Conductor, since it's your first time on here, you brought up a good point. Not even really just with the decor, but some of the aesthetics that's part of the castle itself.
A- Absolutely. So I was just bringing up to George. It was definitely something very interesting. It was something very interesting that they have all this Disneyland 70th decor on the castle, but the one thing that's missing that really brought the kinetic energy was the Disneyland 100th celebration fountains that are not even turned on. They spent probably a lot of money putting the foundation in the water for those fountains, and when they were working, they were awesome, right, OG?
Oh yeah, no, they were. They were. It was a great addition to the castle, and for some reason now, it looks like they are gone. I don't know if there was news that came out at some point that they were maybe limited. I don't know. I didn't hear that though, so I assumed they were going to stay, but apparently not. But I don't know. That's unfortunate. But in terms of the decor itself, though, I actually kind of like this minimal sort of approach. I've never really been big on the castle decor that goes overboard, where you're kind of like where they're like swapping out the rooftops and all that.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean the little bunting, some signage, with the big 70. For me, that's plenty, and so I'm pretty happy with it. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. But what are your thoughts, Choo Choo?
Shoot you.
Mr. Conductor, what are your thoughts on like the bunting and the decor, the color scheme and all that good stuff?
So it's really interesting because the color, the theming, I think it's absolutely beautiful. It really ties in really well on just the colors. It really brings ju- just uh, just the happiness to Disneyland. It's starting to reach down to the roots about what Disneyland's all about, with the happiness, the color. But we were talking to Bricky or the other day, because shout out to Hey Bricky, he was hanging out with us for several hours, and one of the things he brought up was down Main Street they didn't have enough of the banners on Main Street on a lot of the buildings. Like a lot of the buildings, it would have it, and then a couple buildings wouldn't have it, and then it would go again. So it was a little weird. George, what did you think about that?
Yeah, I feel like overall, like starting off like with the decor itself, I noticed like essentially like when I saw the castle, it was very subtle. I didn't really know how I initially thought about it because I'm so used to it being like highly decorated and everything. But the more I was starting to look at it, I loved how they basically had the flags, and you had the 70th emblem more towards the bottom of the castle. So as people are walking through, you got that full immersive uh, celebration decor. Where the top part of the castle, it just is what the castle is, and I kind of like that where it's subtle, but it's enough. And then what was your question with the what Ricky was saying?
So I was just saying with Bricky that basically he was mentioning on Main Street there was buildings that had the decor, the banners, but
Right.
then it would go buildings that had it, then gap with nothing, and then banners again.
Yeah. See, now for that, I felt like that's going a little bit too less of way.
Yeah.
Like if you have to keep a consistency. If you're going to have it, especially on Main Street where people are walking down, you have to where you have to have the um, You have to have the uh, uh, the wait, hold on a second.
You have to have the theming around the entire park. You can't just pick sections and have one section heavily themed and other areas like skin and bones with hardly anything.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. You need a balance in the force.
Yes. Shout out to Abby for that one. But George, I want to ask you because we were here grand opening day. How do you feel that the cast members did with the merch? Because when we all went into the Emporium, it was like Black
Yes.
Friday on
It
steroids.
really was. I have to honestly, for any of the cast members that may be watching this video, I have to give you a big shout out. And honestly, you just deserve like the most highest prestigious medal that a cast member could ever get, because the patience that they all had, and like the amount of people that literally you couldn't walk. I actually think that in the Emporium, they even had more people over the capacity. Like it was, I don't think I've ever seen it so crowded and merch just flying off the shelves as much as I did on Friday.
Definitely. Oh, gee, what did you think about that?
Yeah, it was apocalyptic on Friday. I mean, I was making jokes that it was like the planet was going to explode. We had like a meteor headed towards planet Earth, and we were like all fighting for like the last spaceship off. Like that was like the energy on Friday in the Emporium, you know.
Yeah,
So now on Saturday, that energy drastically dropped.
it did.
You know,
Yes.
so obviously it was that initial run that got to get it first kind of mentality that a lot of people have and stuff. So it was one of those things. A lot of the locals ran in and got that stuff, which is cool. No worries there.
And it seemed like too, it came in spurts, I think, throughout the whole weekend.
Yeah.
I felt like in the morning, everybody came for the merch. Whoever wanted the merch, they ended up leaving. It kind of died out a little bit, but it was still a good, healthy amount of people in the park. And then the evening came for all the nighttime activity, and everyone was coming off of work and everything, so more crowds were coming in. But I feel like that there was still a moment where I looked around the parks
Yeah.
and I said I was expecting, honestly, how it looked in the Emporium that morning. I thought that's how the parks were going to look all day, no matter where you went. And I feel like the reason why it didn't become to that point was, I feel like, because there were certain things that were supposed to start with the 70th anniversary
Yeah.
kickoff this weekend, but got held back till the actual birthday of Disneyland.
Yeah, that's a big factor. I also think a big factor is we do have a big locals fan base. So a lot of people, what they do is they jump in the morning, they drive down here, they get the merch,
Yeah.
but then the park is still the regular park, so they're like, well, there's not a whole lot to do during the day. It's all the same stuff we've done 1,000 times. So they leave, go home, do whatever, and they come back at night for the nighttime stuff, like paint the night and the fireworks and all that good stuff. So
Yeah.
it's like, I think it's a little bit of what we saw, where there was that lull in the middle of the day, and then it really pops off again at night.
Yeah, I agree. Now, what are you guys' thoughts on with Disneyland's actual birthday on July 17th? It's going to be crazy as is, but with a brand new show coming to the Opera House, and not even just any show, a show that's going to introduce the very first ever audio animatronic of Walt Disney himself. I mean, where do you guys feel like they're going to put all of us, like as far as like a queue space or a line, because that area isn't built for a high capacity amount of people to be like being around there like all at once at the same time for long periods of time.
So I actually think there's two ways I see it. One is the side where the Opera House is. They're going to close that off and make lines like where it zigzags back and forth. The other option I see is they're going to open up the backstage area on the right side. So if you're by the flagpole heading towards Cinderella's castle, the whole backstage area behind Main Street on that side, they're going to start putting Q back there. because the last thing they want is so many people lining up. It becomes a safety hazard because we've all seen it on YouTube and Instagram reels that people fall all the time here at the theme parks because they allow so many people to be in such a small area that's not made for it, like George was saying, and it becomes not only a safety hazard but also a fire hazard as well. God forbid if there was ever a fire. So those are the two options. The third option, I'm not sure if they would do it, but it's possible. They might put that show on a virtual queue system. OG, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I do think a virtual queue is definitely a very strong possibility, given the lack of space they have. That whole livery, I think it's livery barn facade over there,
I believe
off
so.
of
Yeah.
right across from the Mad Hatter hat shop. I think our friend Bricky, hey Bricky, speculated that they're going to use that for queuing space over there and open that up. I think that's a huge possibility. So, and it might even be a mixture of both. It might even be like, they open up that whole area by the barn and they do like a VQ. But I think this is kind of what they're looking at here. But it's a real logistical challenge because this is not an attraction that's really been. I mean, look, we love it. We're Disney nerds. We love this stuff. We love the history and all that. But that theater hasn't been hot in a very long time. Not only are you going to get the Walt animatronic, but you also got to remember we're also getting like a little bit of a preview center outside of that.
Yes.
And what's that going to attract? So there's a lot of stuff going on here. I'm very curious how they handle it.
I am as well.
Busy.
Yeah, I am as well. I'm very curious to see. Like, obviously, we're dedicated fans. We're going to be here. But yeah, I'm very curious to see the whole demographic of like how many people are actually going to show up for this. That who know Walt, who appreciate him, that want to honor him for the 70th birthday of Disneyland. So it's going to be very telling. Also, too, while we're walking in Galaxy's Edge, I did want to bring something up as well. That actually Bricky was talking to us, and it was just like the overall, uh, lack of kinetic energy like within this land. That there's supposed to be, a third attraction that we never got with the Banthas.
Wow.
There's supposed to be a restaurant that was adjacent to Oga's Cantina that we never got, and it's like, what are you guys' thoughts on all that?
Well, I mean, obviously, I think Galaxy's Edge is a great land overall. I think it has good bones, so to speak, a good foundation. But it's not without its major flaws, and I think kinetic energy is a huge part of it. So the Banthas would have been a massive help with that.
Yeah.
I think that would have been something that would have been fantastic. It would have looked really cool to see those Banthas kind of going through the land. I'll never forgive Chapek for cutting those. That pisses me off.
Yeah.
And then the restaurant too. I mean, Disneyland, aside from what even Galaxy's Edge really needs, Disneyland needs a sit-down restaurant.
It does. It needs a lot more.
Sorely needs it. And so the fact that they cut that is really frustrating as well, which is really stupid because that would have given them another venue to sell more alcohol. Oga's Cantina is packed. It is absolute wall to wall all the time. They give you that stupid 45-minute time limit. Which we talked to Bricky about it the other day when he was down here at the parks, and I think he's right. I mean, that to me is bad show.
It is.
When you sit there and tell people, okay, here's 2 drinks, get out. You only have 45 minutes. It's not a good look. And they do the same thing over there at Trader Sam's.
Yes, which I didn't even remember them doing.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like something new that you waited a little bit and then you decided you wanted to get chicken tenders.
Right.
And it was like she said, oh yeah, you can get it, but you have to get it to go because your what is it, hour and a half, 90-minute experience
was over. Yeah. And I was already having a rough day because I have anxiety disorder and I had 3 Vietnamese coffees that day.
Yes.
So I was on the struggle bus that day. But that was weird. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. For me, I think
I think if you're a paying customer and you're willing to spend your money,
yeah,
I think honestly you should be able to sit as long as you want As long as you're giving the support to the establishment that you're spending your money on it, on their product.
Yeah, see, I agree with what OG was saying. Just to start off with Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, I think that third attraction would have been absolutely amazing. Just like what OG was saying and Bricky, having that restaurant, I think the restaurant idea would have been absolutely fantastic if they could have made it big enough. Because I agree, the problem with Disneyland is there's a lot of food places, but it's not really sit down related. So you grab and go, and then it's like, okay, well, what? I'm going to eat my food in Main Street, or I'm going to try to fight to get a table. That's not what the experience should be about. Then also, with going back to the Star Wars thing, a restaurant, they could have had that kind of like the Galactic Star Cruiser in Walt Disney World that failed unfortunately, but had it a whole dining experience. I think that would have been absolutely incredible, having the characters walk around, and it's something where they could still do it, but it's something that shouldn't have been constructed if they wanted to do it back then when they were building the land. Because now it's like, don't get me wrong. If they build it, they announce it. You know, it's going to have fire for a good long while, but then it's going to die off, and that's just part of the problem that I see. You know what I mean? It's just it's something that I would like to see, because you know I like to go to Oga's Cantina as much as the next guy. But when I'm getting told myself, oh, here's two drinks, drink it, and buzzer it off, so we can cater to the next person, I don't feel like that I'm valued
Exactly.
as a paying
A
customer,
paying customer,
and
exactly.
that goes for anywhere in Disneyland. It's not just Oga's; it's anywhere, like Trader Sam's, like OG was talking about. So I don't know. I don't know. It's something they got to reevaluate, because if Disneyland, and any theme park for this matter, but at Disneyland, if they're gonna keep increasing prices, and they're gonna be more and more strict on certain things like that, it's just it ruins the magic for the average everyday theme park guest.
Yeah, that is very true. And also, kind of going off of that, we mentioned it briefly in this conversation about having more sit-down restaurants, and as OG was saying, not even just in Galaxy's Edge, but just throughout Disneyland and the resort as a whole. I really hope that they are taking that into consideration when it comes to Disneyland forward. That as much as we want to see, yes, new rides, new shows, new attractions, bring more entertainment back. Absolutely, I'm all for that. But they also have to take into consideration that the resort is lacking a lot of sit down restaurants and different variations of restaurants, like have different styles, different themes. And that's something that you can get at Walt Disney World. There are tons and tons of restaurants. Now, I know Disneyland Resort isn't as big in size as Walt Disney World, but a lot of people come here each and every day. And I just feel like there's not enough sit down eateries to go around.
Definitely. Definitely. And George, I want to ask you, going back on the merch for a second.
Yes.
Do you think by everyone being here opening weekend, and I mean like everybody from every single probably every single country, do you honestly think that Disney themselves put enough merch out for everyone to enjoy, or do you think there were errors that they could have, corrected?
Okay.
Like for example, like for myself, I was looking for the Magic Band
Mhm.
Disneyland 70th Magic Band,
Right.
and for now the third or fourth day they haven't had it. So what do you think about that?
Okay, so first I want to start off with the timing of when they released all the merch.
Yeah.
When you have specific merch that is being released for a specialty event or a celebration, and you're saying said celebration is being this particular day.
Sure.
When you then do a soft kind of opening with merch where everyone can get their hands on the merch even before the event starts.
Definitely.
So by the time the event starts, there's nothing left.
Yeah.
It's like, because if you have a date and everyone is planning on whether traveling or taking the day off, you're expected to say, okay, this is the date where all the stuff's going to get dropped.
Yeah.
But if they drop it on a date where no one is anticipating,
Sure.
and whoever just happens to be there at that time, to me, that's not fair to the people who were dedicating themselves to get that merch for opening day. That's the first thing. If you're going to do that, then you have to make sure you have enough in inventory to be able to do that. If you don't,
Yeah.
then careful, bro. Yeah, you if you're willing to do that, you have to make sure you have enough to go around.
Definitely.
You can't just expect to say, okay, people are, for instance, you've been wanting to get that pocket watch.
Yeah.
Okay, well, a lot of people are probably going to be anticipating on getting that pocket watch. I know, companies don't know how anticipated, like exactly how many are going to be sold.
Sure.
But you want to make sure you have enough to go around,
Yeah.
especially for if you know how many people are going to be coming for the celebration. And isn't that the whole reason of the park reservations anyway?
Yes.
Is to hold on to that data to say of like how many people are going to be in your park.
Definitely.
So if you're anticipating on say 15,000 people, okay, for one day,
Yeah.
times that by 3, okay, so then you equivalent the amount of watches, say, times that by 5.
Oh, absolutely. Well, see, it's interesting because is it really Disney's fault or is it a logistical issue that comes out of Disney's control?
I think it comes from, I hate to say this, kind of like of a higher power, that I think there's a lot of red and yellow tape
Yeah.
that that uh, you just don't know,
Definitely.
that we can see, but behind the scenes they're like, hey, we need this,
Oh, sure.
but it's like, oh well, we can't fund that to you because it's
Definitely.
like it's not in the quota.
Definitely.
It's like,
So I want to ask you one more thing. I'm going to give it to OG to get his reaction as well. We just found out because we were having lunch right over here because we're in Frontierland right now walking around.
yes,
And one of the things that got brought up was Disneyland is closing early tonight to
Yes.
start the grad night celebrations for all of the seniors that are graduating Southern California
Right.
high schools.
which I don't really understand.
Yeah.
Like why they would pick, and I get it because school is out and everything, but to pick that particular moment to have grad night like on the opening weekend of the 70th,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like that's like biting more off than you can chew,
Definitely.
and it's like, and I'm all for education.
Sure.
I'm all for achievements,
Definitely.
but don't have it on the opening weekend of the 70th anniversary.
Absolutely. OG, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's interesting. It seems like it's a lot going on in one weekend. It could be something also, though, to be fair, like with the school districts and coordinating with them as well, that is causing them, it's kind of forcing them into that. I'm not really sure. I don't really know the logistics of
Yeah.
it, but it does seem a little bit weird that they're going to shut it down early on a very, very momentous weekend, the kickoff.
Now, do you think that was actually a little bit of a strategy? Do you think that they're utilizing the 70th to then say, you know what, let's tie it in with grad night because we may be able to like double our with like the spending and everything?
Yeah, always possible. It's absolutely possible. Now, I went to grad night years ago, and it was it's a great experience for the grads. It really is. I mean, you spend all night in the park. It's unique, definitely. You don't really get to do that any time else. I mean, yeah, we had the what's it called, 24-hour day thing.
Yeah.
But those are far and few between. We haven't had a 24-hour day in over a decade, So for these kids to be able to go and have this park at night like that, I think it's pretty special. But yeah, they could have coordinated a little better, I think,
Yeah.
But again, there's probably a lot behind the scenes with that because they do have to coordinate with the schools and everything. So
Yeah.
I don't really know enough about it to really have form like a super educated opinion on it, but that's kind of like where I stand with it. But I do support grad night overall just because I do think it's a special thing for these grads to kind of experience.
I do have some sour grapes with that because unfortunately I didn't grow up in California, so I didn't get the experience grad nights. The most we got for our graduation over Pennsylvania was free nachos and Sundays.
Ah, yeah.
Living the dream.
Living the dream.
I would have loved to. I would have thrived for grad nights at Disneyland.
Oh,
That would have been.
absolutely.
Oh man, that would have been so awesome.
Absolutely. No, you would have loved it, man. But you know, it's all good. You're making up your Disney time now, right?
I am. Yes.
So, I mean, Park looks pretty busy today, though.
It is.
Right?
It is.
I mean,
You know what's
But-
funny? Oh, go
But
ahead.
I believe each school district is supposed to reserve when they're going to have their grad night with Disneyland ahead of schedule. So I think they have already known because school year schedules come out in August, September. So
Okay, so you're saying like the dates was already locked in before maybe even the 70th dates were
yes.
depicted. Okay, now that makes sense.
So to be fair to the school districts, because my kids both finished school recently, and their school calendar was out before or July before they start in August. So of course they have to know when grad night is, RSVP it because every school district is trying to get different dates. This isn't for all school districts. And they
Okay.
RSVP these dates with Disneyland. And so if Disney overbooked and decided this should be the weekend, they messed up in this sense, kind of.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, I want to go back to what we were bringing up because this is actually important. At the time of this recording, this is Sunday, May 18th. This is the last day of the opening of the kickoff weekend to the 70th. I have to say, it's surprisingly more busy. I don't know what you guys think, but it's surprisingly more busier than what it was yesterday for a Saturday.
well, and here's my question for you guys. I don't really look at the blockout calendar. Were keys blocked out yesterday? It could be in relation to that. There could have been more keys blocked out yesterday. Today, there's less.
Now, okay, yes, actually that does make sense. Now for Inspire and Believe was open, but I think
Enchants are closed every Saturday.
Enchants are closed every Saturday. So anyone who has an Enchant key could
Probably
not
here
come
today.
yesterday, but they can come today.
So that impacted the numbers almost certainly yesterday. So that's probably what we were seeing.
Because the Enchant is a popular one because of the fact that it does include Sundays, but it is a cheaper option than the Believe. So that's why Sundays is so busy.
And I don't know what it is, like Tomorrowland still seems to be a popular land where people are everywhere.
And this is why the Disney nerds, and myself included, I'm not being derogatory. I'm a Disney nerd, but the Disney nerds, we want a new Tomorrowland so bad. But can you see why Disney is not motivated to jump on in this project?
They can't, not right now.
Well, but yeah, and why? Why would they? I mean, it's packed. People are spending money. Like, why would they? Like, it's really kind of a vanity project in a lot of ways, just to make it look better. I mean, the substance here in the land is attracting more than enough people.
It really is. I mean, look, there's like not like a spot that is literally. We just came from where I call the Tomorrowland Vortex, and it's like from the entranceway where you pass Buzz Lightyear and everything. Like it gets so crowded.
Yeah. So I think Disney's sort of like, yeah, they want to redo Tomorrowland. I'm sure they do. It's on the list for sure.
It's just not high up on that list.
No, not at all. This
Why
place
pick
is already
something that's not broken yet?
right.
Yes.
Exactly, Abby. Exactly.
What's your take, conductor?
So my take is exactly what OG was saying. You know, there's Imagineers inside Disney that want a new Tomorrowland so bad. But as we're walking around, George is showing footage of every aspect of Tomorrowland. Why would they feel like they need to upgrade Tomorrowland when you have so many people crammed in here already? There's nowhere to sit. And on top of that, they're already planning with Disneyland forward. Why would they even touch Tomorrowland? And it makes sense. But there was a I think a post on IG months and months and months ago. There was an Imagineer. I forgot his name, but he was. They showed footage of him playing around with
Oh,
Tomorrowland in some of the buildings.
Joe Rody.
Joe
Joe
Rody.
Rody. Yes.
Yeah, and he was messing around and they're filming him. He was messing around with some of the different buildings, and the building in particular I'm talking about is the old American Sings building. So,
Yep.
yeah,
Star Wars launch bay.
Star Wars launch base. So, if they decide to take that out, what a massive footprint that is, and what they could do with it, who knows? But again, I think Tomorrowland is now again on the back burner because we were all speculating before D23. George and Orange Grove 55 went to that event, but before that event, we were all talking about, there were whispers and murmurs about the people mover and then other things that were going on. But again, as a result, D23 basically showed that Tomorrowland is still on the back burner, and it's still going to be on the back burner even when tomorrow or Disneyland Forward is going on.
Yeah, and also too, Imagineer Scott Trowbridge did a little teaser on his social media about showing the motorboat cruise area for future redevelopment as well. Now, nothing has come of that since that post, but again, that doesn't mean that it's not been talked about. The fact that they make those posts and they show that stuff, that means it is in circulation to say, hey, down the road, we are considering this.
Definitely. And going back to Tomorrowland just for a second, it's not like they're not, actually doing stuff, because one of the latest announcements we all heard was Autopia. They are going to transition the Autopia vehicles from gas to electric. So
Right.
Tomorrowland is not exactly on the back burner, but some of the stuff that we want to see change, upgraded and stuff, that's on the back burner.
Exactly. Now, I actually stopped in this spot because this is like one of my favorite spots in all of Tomorrowland. It's so tranquil and serene, as C-3PO would say, with
Absolutely.
those freaking space whales. But I absolutely love the lagoon. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the subs
Yeah.
as the ride themselves, but I know they're quintessential Disneyland. I did ride them several times. They're fun. They're nice fill-in, but I mean, it's just not my cup of tea. But the lagoon is so breathtaking. And I know OG mentioned this back on Orange Grove 55 many, many shows ago about before they officially made the announcement of where Pandora was going,
Yeah.
that they literally could have combined where the end of Fantasyland ended to the beginning of Tomorrowland, because with Avatar, you have that fantasy and then that futuristic side, and you could have literally transformed this lagoon into the Way of Water.
Oh, absolutely. Just just as you're watching the footage, you can absolutely imagine what it would look like. The only thing I say about it is Avatar is such a huge IP for the Walt Disney Company. Um, I just don't know without literally ripping like this whole section apart, possibly even more over off to the distance with Star Wars Launch Bay to fit something like that. But I agree with George that this would be a perfect location. I just don't think it's big enough, but the location's perfect.
Yes, I definitely agree with you. The scope of when they showed us the concept art, it's like,
Yes.
okay, I can kind of see like where it would kind of have to be like funneled in, and it's like it'd be so cramped. Um, Now, another option that you kind of have this lagoon that you could turn it into, because it's adjacent to Fantasyland, Mermaid Lagoon, and you can
Yes.
kind of give off that Fantasy Springs esque to it, and you could do like an expansion of the other side of the spectrum, which is Fantasyland.
Definitely. I totally agree with that. OG, what do you think about Avatar early on going in this location? Exactly what George said about the mermaid.
Yeah, I was suggesting that a long time ago too. Where like I think that this is a perfect segue between Tomorrow and Fantasy, and Avatar is a perfect franchise to do that. to do that tomorrow to fantasy. You can have the more natural kind of elements on the Fantasyland side, so the rock work, the gorgeous waterfalls, and what have you, and you have the more tech stuff towards the Tomorrowland side. There's a lot of tech mech suit stuff in the Avatar franchise, and that stuff could be more on that Tomorrowland side, and it's a perfect transition. And that's what I would do, man. I mean, I've been saying that, but we were told at D23 this is going into DCA, which creates all kinds of issues.
And questions.
They're definitely questions. What they're gonna do, I don't know. So we'll see. But I don't know. What say you, conductor?
So I absolutely agree with that statement. One of the things is with Avatar now going into DCA somewhere, which we all don't even know where, we can only speculate. It makes me wonder with the submarines here. How much longer do you think this attraction has? Quite honestly, because a lot of people they still ride it. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of people, like the older generation, they can't handle the claustrophobia inside the sub. So, George, how long do you think this attraction has? Maybe after Disneyland Forward, they can address it, or
I'm thinking whatever projects that are going, uh, going through with the projects that were announced already at D23. Um, they're going to work on those first, obviously. I feel like Disneyland has kind of been put on that back burner, so to speak, with like adding new things and changing things out, just because I feel like Disneyland can hold its own right now. DCA is the one that really needs the help right now, which, Tomorrow is answering that. Just hopefully that he can deliver with Coco and Pandora. But after that, I can definitely see, maybe if not even a whole transformation of Tomorrowland, I can see three things that may be on the chopping block, and the subs is one of them. The other two is actually right next to it, and that's Autopia. And then right next to that is the old motorboat cruise area.
You go check it out?
Yeah, let's go.
yeah, let's go check it out.
Because we're walking and talking, right?
We're walking and talking.
So with that in mind, with three different locations and that massive footprint, what would you like to see here? Because people, on online, in the forums, they said early on that Arendelle can go here. Do you think an Arendelle would fit if you remove three different attractions and one being a non-existent anymore?
Well, this alone, just Autopia alone, is a massive blueprint. Like
you could fit Arendelle here, and you would have the Matterhorn looming over, which would add to its theming. It would be kind of perfect, to be honest with you.
I mean, and then you have the motorboat cruise area, which then would add more. Yeah, you could probably, I think, between the subs, Autopia, and the motorboat cruise area, you might be able to fit 2 Fantasy Springs, like in that same kind of footprint, I would think, because Autopia alone, you can get a whole land out of that. You could probably get like 2 to 3 attractions just in this one, which I find is amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And they're going to have to address this stuff. I know people will say in the comments, well, it's expensive to remove the track, the monorail. I mean, the People Mover track. It's expensive to reroute the monorail. They're going to have to address it one day. Eventually, they're going to want to use this space. We don't have an infinite amount of space here at Disneyland Resort. Even with Disneyland Forward, there's not unlimited room. So eventually, this is probably going to be prime for expansion. And that maybe doesn't mean Autopia goes away fully, but even maybe half of it,
Yeah, maybe just do like one track, and you can like alleviate some of the rest.
Right.
Because this was at the time the future, so to speak. But now it's a thing in the past.
Well, then people say, well, electric cars, which we are getting electric cars as mandated by a new California law. So they have to do that one.
Right.
But electric cars aren't even really the future because they're now.
Yeah.
I mean, these electric cars are very popular, especially here in California. I mean, you see them on the road all the time. So it's not necessarily something that's like out there crazy
Out
future.
there, cruise. Yeah, absolutely. But what it does have is, as I said, it has a massive footprint of an expansion pad.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, 100%. I mean, look at all this. I mean, between this, look at even this little area right here, this little nook over here.
Yeah. Now this right here, this is where Imagineer Scott Trowbridge did his little social media post about future development of the park, and this is what was connected to the motorboat cruise area, which they essentially turned it into like a little sit and rest kind of area, which is cool. You know, you definitely need seating at Disneyland for sure. But again, when you're limited to the amount of space that you have for future development, it's kind of slim pickings. You have to kind of weigh your pros and cons of what you can actually do.
Yeah. And if we go over here real quick, George, or actually, I'll let you do it. Yeah, no, right over here. Right over here. I just want to give a big shout out to a contributor of the channel. We got the one and only Mr. Seymour Duck. You've seen him on Orange Grove 55, our financial guy. Seymour's amazing.
Really?
Mr.
Call him
C-
to me?
Mr. Seymour Duck.
Mr. Seymour Duck. Good guy. Good
Yes.
Let's do it. We're ready.
But conductor, what's your take on the motorboat cruise area, the lack of space, but yet they have to kind of sacrifice one thing over the other, unfortunately.
So I think if they have to sacrifice it, it needs to be sacrificed.
Yeah.
You can't hold on to nostalgia forever. That's one of the things that a lot of theme parks look at. Look at even Universal just for a second with the Hollywood aspect, because it's a movie lot first,
Right.
theme park second, and they're starting to make waves by expanding. That's what Disneyland needs to do here. Like George said, it's great to enjoy the atmosphere, go sit down, be next to a little pond here that used to be the river boat cruise, see the ducks and kind of relax. But like we're all saying, this is prime real estate. It's the same thing with the Star Wars launch bay. It's the same thing with the old people mover tracks. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Autopia, we have the bigger Autopia than Walt Disney World.
Yes, I believe so.
So
yeah,
that's also an aspect.
because again, they even cut that track down for Tron because a lot of people thought Autopia was gone for the place of Tron, but no, they kept Autopia. They just shortened up the track. And took a little snip off the top.
And I think that's what's going to happen here. I think they're going full force with making those cars electric. So I don't think if they're going to invest in that, they're going to completely get rid of the attraction. I think what George is saying makes perfect sense. They're going to trim it down where it's a small attraction, but it's a fun attraction. Yeah. But it's not going to be the grand scale like it is right now.
Exactly. And actually, that's a nice way to kind of segue it to maybe possibly remove it completely. Cut it down little by little. Maybe get rid of one track, keep one, and then eventually just get rid of it all.
Definitely. And I've been saying this as well, talking about the monorail track, because if they do build in this area, you can obviously see to the right side, you have the monorail track, and perfect timing, the monorail is going by. This would probably have to be rerouted. At least this section here, I think that section's fine, but this section off to the right would probably have to be rerouted. And it's going to cost money, like OG's saying, but you have to invest money into the parks to have people come in and enjoy it. You can't be nostalgic forever.
And I think and honestly, how I see nostalgia is like to get rid of it is like getting rid of a bad marriage. It's like you have it there, but it's like it just has to go, man.
Yeah.
Like it just has to go.
Yeah.
But what OG was saying too was what he calls the spaghetti bowl with the monorail. Eventually, they're going to have to unkink that sooner or later because it limits them to do anything because that's a big piece of the land of Tomorrowland.
Well, see, it's funny you say that about the spaghetti bowl because if they're rerouting the monorail, if they have to, and I think they will, and why they're doing that, and it's shut down because they're doing that. If they really do decide to make the Toy Story parking lot a third gate, don't you think it would be wise to have a stop at that third gate? Because right now, as we're looking at it, the monorail only has 2 stops. It has one in downtown Disney, one in Tomorrowland. So it doesn't even stop at DCA. It passes right by it. So do you think that might be something they can consider in the future?
I think honestly that would be the best. I don't want to say excuse, but
Yeah.
that would be the best time to do it.
Yeah.
And that's to literally unkink the um
You're okay.
to unkink the monorail track.
Yeah.
So that way, yeah, for possible future development for a third gate at Toy Story parking lot, which I think we're all in agreement that that's pretty much where the third gate's going to go.
Definitely.
Disney is not ever going to have almost 75 acres of their own property that's
No.
already rezoned for future theme park development.
Exactly. And then as we're walking towards Small World over here, there's the Fantasyland Theater. The only thing I have an issue with that Fantasyland Theater is, yes, they do have shows for events or just shows in general, but it's most of the time it's vacant.
Yes.
I'm going to call it
Good
abandoned.
day, Bert.
I call it abandoned because most of the time it just sits. Do you think that might be a value spot for maybe another attraction like the Beauty and the Beast attraction?
That was my main idea from the get, was literally to get that, what OG calls the Wonder Bra Theater,
Yeah.
out, and literally because it's settled like up on like a hilltop,
Yeah.
so you literally could put the Beast Castle there and bring like an immersive Renaissance era attraction, which Disney has been lacking in all its domestic parks for God knows how long, even in the Michael Eisner era. That is like we have not yet got a decent Renaissance era attraction other than the Little Mermaid, which took, I don't know, what, 12 years for them to bring out, I believe.
No, it was longer than that.
Was it longer?
Little Mermaid came out in
Oh, no,
89.
sorry, 22.
Yeah, it came out in 89 and the ride didn't open until 2011.
That's at 22.
Yep. It took a really long time, way too long. That movie, I say it so many times, but not everyone watches every video on Orange 55 or Citrico Central. So sometimes I do repeat myself, but like honestly, that movie like really saved the company, you know, and
It did.
It changed animation forever, especially at Disney. So, you know, how does it take you that long to build an attraction based on that movie? I just don't get it.
So
I
yeah,
really don't.
yeah. So conductor and I said Beauty and the Beast, but you also had another idea of what attraction could
Yeah,
go here as well.
I would love to see Tangled, because you can have Tangled. You can attach a Snuggly Duckling to it, you know. And I know a lot of fans don't like alcohol in the parks. I don't have an issue with it because sometimes you have to move with the times a little bit. And Disney has proven that they can be responsible with the sales of alcohol. I think they've been fine with it. I would do a Tangled attraction. You can attach a Snuggly Duckling little bar, have like a fun little show in there or something while you just eat and drink and what have you. And I would do that, man. I mean, Tangled's a big property.
It is, yeah, and it's been, and it kind of like I always called Tangled the little sister to Frozen.
Yeah.
It's like it wants to do so much, but it always had like the shadow of Frozen. But it came back in a big way, I feel, since 2010 during its release. Now, as of right now, you can see they have this area blocked off, and they just have the Pixar signage, and then they added some tables like for some dining and some resting. And again, it's like Disney has to get creative with Disneyland to find spots for rest areas. So whenever something is not being utilized, it's like, okay, let's throw in some chairs, some benches, some tables, something. But again, it then hurts the creativity side to be able to add future development, because then if you were to get rid of this, it ends up removing some of this. But eventually, yes, this has to go. I'm sorry, Disney, I love you, but this is one god awful ugly theater.
Well, especially for Fantasyland, which is like really like more whimsical, a lot of wood, and carve, you know, like wood and the wood carvings and what have you. And then you have this very metal and vinyl monstrosity out here in the back.
Yeah,
it just doesn't really work, you know.
Yeah, I don't get it.
So now we did see that show last night over here, didn't we?
We
Tapestry,
did,
which was
yes,
an amazing tribute to Disneyland's history.
It's literally a 5-minute show, but if they could wrap up the whole entire meaning of what the 70th anniversary was.
That was it.
That was it, just of that show alone. A 5 minute show that literally, and it incorporated everything that you would want in a show about the history of the parks.
Right. And you had nods to the Sherman Brothers,
Yes.
which we unfortunately lost Richard about a year ago now.
Yes.
Which
we will be getting his final verse that he wrote for the song shortly before he passed. And they will be incorporating that into It's a Small World starting July 17th.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was such a beautiful thing. I love that. I absolutely love that. We got to hear that verse actually at D23 back in August.
We did.
And really kind of blew me away. But these two men were absolute legends, and they changed Disney and just music in general.
Music, yeah, like just the music industry. Like, there's not one person probably in this world that hasn't at least at one point heard one Sherman Brothers song.
100%.
And I love the tagline that Disney put at the very end of that little trailer clip to honor them for the final verse. And it was before it said, like, in loving memory of, Robert B. Sherman and Richard M. Sherman. Thank you for making a big world seem smaller.
Yes,
And
I
like
love
that just like sums up like everything of what they stood for.
Yeah. No, two great men, icons,
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love it. I love that they added them into that show last night. Really good stuff. I mean, who knew? Tapestry was kind of was a surprise.
Yeah, it was.
And when we got it, it was like, wow, okay, this is like a real gem.
It is. Yeah. It's actually one of those things, even though it's like meant to be just for the 70th, I'll actually miss it when it goes. That's how good it was.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with that. Going back to the very beginning, what OG was saying about the tapestry and George, what a great homage to Disneyland's history, a great homage to what the 70th is, and just an overall aspect of what the Disneyland, when it first began to what it is now, even with Walt Disney himself, one of the special aspects of the show at the end was showing Walt Disney himself in his kind of blonde looking attire, and
As like the statue.
yeah, as the statue. Yes. And he sits there, and I think it's Mickey that reaches his hand out, and Walt grabs his hand, and then they start walking off into the sunlight. I think that right there was one of the most breathtaking moments of that show.
It was the cherry on top. It literally was the cherry on top.
It's a must-see show. It really is. I really honestly hope that with that show, they bring more shows like that, either to Small World or just other areas of the park, because, again, for a 5 minute show compared to like Paint the Night, Wondrous Journeys, uh, uh, the other show in DCA, World of Color, for a five minute show, I was astonished, and I think a lot of people were astonished. And we had the last couple of days, we've had people here from all over the world. I'm not just talking about average theme park guests. I'm talking about influencers like George, like Orange Grove 55, like myself, theme park conductor, and many more that went to go see that show and were just blown away.
Yeah, I completely 1000% agree. It wrapped everything up in a nice little bow. It didn't need to be extended. I honestly wouldn't have changed anything to it, to be honest with you. It like hit every note that it possibly could mean for, again, not even just Disneyland's 70th anniversary, but just Disneyland as a whole, as a park, of what it did for pop culture, what it did for the nation, what it did for the entire world.
Definitely. And one thing I want to ask you, George, since we're kind of going by it a little bit, is Tom Sawyer's Island, because yes, we've all heard stories. I think even Bricky did several videos on his channel talking about Tom Sawyer's Island, how Walt Disney himself used to entertain celebrities, dignitaries have parties on that island. Are you surprised at all that Tom Sawyer's Island wasn't, part of this celebration and it was just left alone, or do you think they should have done something with it?
Um, I feel like with Tom Sawyer's Island, I feel like they probably could have added something to it, but I feel like it wasn't like a strong necessity to like say, okay, let's do something with it because they already utilize it for Phantasmic in the evening, and I feel like that it kind of can withhold itself. I do like get like as far as like with Walt himself with the nostalgia of it. But I think for the overall celebration, I don't think a lot of normies would know about that, so it
Sure,
really wouldn't bother them.
sure.
The one, now I'm going to eat my words by saying this because I wish that they would have done something extra special with the Golden Horseshoe.
Yes,
Like bring like a show into that theater
yes.
specifically for the 70th anniversary.
Yeah,
Like whether it was like it didn't have to be like a Disney like cavalcade of characters, but like just like a traditional like how they do at the Birdcage Theater at Knott's Berry Farm.
definitely. And that's something that was probably a missed opportunity, but then again, they do have 18 months of the celebration to bring something. I just kind of thought if they would have brought something to the Golden Horseshoe, they would have done it obviously the first day, opening weekend and whatnot. So it's kind of a missed opportunity. And I think it's David from Fresh Baked. He goes in there all the time to see if there's a show happening, and there's always a little sign that says no shows today or no entertainment. Do you think that's part of a bigger picture going with Disneyland Forward, going with what they're doing in other parts of the world, even in our Florida counterpart in Walt Disney World? Because we've also noticed in Avengers Campus, they finally, after D23 was last September, they finally put up a construction wall to start construction on. Hey, what's up, guys? To start Avengers Campus, the expansion, with both the attractions that are coming to that area. And we noticed like they got rid of the Doctor Strange show. They got rid of like one or two other shows in that land. Do you think that's maybe the same reason why we haven't seen like an entertainment show in the Golden Horseshoe, because it's just put on the back burner?
Yeah, I definitely feel like that there's potential for future use of it, and I think that's why they haven't really gave up the hope to actually have the signs like posted and everything, like of there's no show times today, but that shows that there were shows in there, and there could potentially be shows in there in the future. I don't think they've given up hope with that.
No.
I think they're just waiting kind of to see. Like right now, I feel like that as much as we love the entertainment, I just think in the theme park industry, everything is just so fast paced right now.
Yeah.
And I think they're just waiting for the appropriate time to eventually bring it back. And I do think they will bring it back.
Yeah. OG, what do you think about that? Because I was just mentioning to George that with everything going on out here in Disneyland, everything going on at Walt Disney World with expansions, infrastructure, and all that, because we've seen, like we're talking about, we've been missing a show for the Golden Horseshoe for quite some time. They had an opportunity to bring a small little show for the 70th. They didn't. And then we've seen lackluster of entertainment in Avengers Campus. Do you think there's a reason behind that?
Yeah, I do. I think they're just kind of like, I think it's a couple of things. Number one, I think they're kind of being cheap. They're pulling back, right? And also from what I understand, and again, I'm not super versed in this, but they do have the union element in this whole thing too. So I think between those two things, that's kind of what we're seeing here. The Golden Horseshoe really needs a show. Crazy Kirk and the Hillbillies are amazing. Now they're at Knott's, and it's a sin that Disney allowed them to go over to Knott's. I mean, they should still be here at Disneyland. There's no reason for that. So yeah, I really want a show in there, and it's a fun venue. You can do a lot. George and I were over at Walt Disney World about 2 years ago. We checked out the Hoop-De-Doo Review, which is basically the Golden Horseshoe on steroids, and the show they put on over there is amazing. You
Well,
know,
well, see, it's funny you say that because we're talking about the Golden Horseshoe. They have a really nice banner up on the Golden Horseshoe saying "Celebrate 70 years." Obviously, it's a paid a homage to the Disneyland 70th. So you honestly wouldn't have thought that they wouldn't have had a show in here. You know, it's again, it's a missed opportunity. But like I said, there's 18 months of this celebration to go. So hopefully they do bring something. It's just something that they missed on. You know.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, it is something like it's saying like celebrating 70 years because the Golden Horseshoe is part of that celebration.
Hmm.
It's part of that history. It's part of what made Disneyland. And it's like, yeah, it's just a shame that it just got reduced down to a quick service kind of sitting dining hall.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah,
but
it's definitely a missed opportunity. I want to ask you, George, because obviously Fantasmic is going to come back online,
yes,
and the Rivers is always it's that iconic place just to hang out, enjoy the atmosphere, just kind of like what the lagoon was in next to Tomorrowland. Do you think when we start getting to the 75th anniversary, the 80th with Fantasmic, do you think we're going to get the dragon back?
I do. I had hoped that we were going to get the dragon for the 70th, like when it first was announced. But as we started seeing that nothing was being mentioned, and they were making alterations with the show itself to kind of fill in the void, I'm thinking, okay, there's not enough time before the 70th kicks off that we're going to get the dragon. Now they may have it come back. Um, within the 70th anniversary perimeter time. If not, then they'll definitely, I feel like, hold off and wait for the 75th because everyone is saying that as big as this 70th anniversary is, the 75th is going to be even bigger.
Absolutely, because every 25 years for a theme park is obviously the bigger celebration. And speaking of 25, next year DCA is turning 25. I want to ask George first, and then I'll ask OG. Do you think they're going to do something with DCA for its 25th anniversary, and what's your thoughts on that?
Honestly, I'd be very happy and content for DCA's 25th anniversary for us to just know where Pandora and Coco's going.
I agree with that.
Like literally, I'd be so like satisfied with that because it's unfortunate that DCA lives in the shadow of Disneyland,
Yeah.
and it's like people use like the comparison between the two all the time, but DCA is not Disneyland. It's not supposed to. It was never meant to be that way. Let DCA have its own identity, but to do that, you still have to give it the same TLC, you know, that you give with Disneyland.
yeah, no, and I think to answer your question, I think that they will probably do something for DCA's 25th, but it'll probably be a very limited, minor thing. They don't typically go all out on the secondary parks with those anniversaries, unfortunately.
And that's even with Walt Disney World too. The only one really that gets away with it is Epcot.
Well, Epcot's an exception.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that one's so deeply connected to Walt and everything. So yeah, but hopefully, I love DCA. You know, I want to see it strive. I want to see it thrive. But they do tend to kind of gloss over it quite a bit, unfortunately. You know.
It's like Tomorrowland 2.0. They just gloss over it. Now, I do want to ask both of you, do you think with the 25th, if they don't do something grand like the 70th is here, do you think, because I know you two have felt like DCA needs a new name change because the California aspect is losing the theming over there and it's becoming more IP based. And one of the ideas you guys had was Disney Cinematic Adventure. Do you think that could be something they change for the 25th, or would it be a good idea to do it?
I think honestly, with Avatar coming in, unless there is some deep rooted connection with the future films that ties into Earth and California, I don't see how it could stay just as California Adventure. I know people use that the terminology that, oh, it's a theme park based in California. Well, I don't know. That just seems like a little bit of a cheap gimmick to me, and I
Yeah,
don't really take it as that.
yeah, because you know when you look at Pixar Pier, obviously you have the big giant Ferris wheel. You have some aspects like the roller coaster that got rethemed Incredicoaster, but there's really no more California theme to that park. It needs a new name change, and I think for the 25th anniversary, I think it would be awesome to sit there and change the name. That would be a great way without doing a lot of infrastructure work if they don't want to do that. And we're looking at some fans here on the Mark Twain.
Yeah, and the other thing too that we have to remember, and obviously this is not something that a lot of fans, or no, not fans, but normies would really be aware of. But when Disney rededicated California Adventure,
Yes.
if you read the dedication plaque, and maybe we can go over there and actually show it and add it to the video later, because this is actually something I forgot about. On that dedication plaque, it mentions the dreamers that came from California.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's the route they're going to go with Avatar. James Cameron, Stan Lee, the dreamers of the.
that makes
After
sense.
this, we should go to DCA. What we'll do is we'll continue it and we'll show that plaque. We'll read it and kind of get context and kind of go over that, because I think that I totally forgot about that, and that might be the direction they're going to
Okay,
go.
that might make more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually a good point. Like, I never thought of it that way.
Right. I
I forgot about the plaque.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the direction they're going to go in. So after this, we should go over there and check it out, because I think that would be kind of interesting to kind of read that plaque again. I'm pretty sure it mentions the dreamers and the innovators of the state of California.
And what better way to, I know I'm going like way off of that subject matter, but it would be so cool to reincorporate the Muppets, because like of with
Jim
Rainbow
Henson.
Connection, Jim Henson,
Right.
and then like the lyrics of the lovers, the dreamers, and you or and me, you know.
Exactly. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. But it's been a great walk and talk
Yeah.
from Disneyland Park. We will definitely add in the plaque from DCA, so all you guys can see what we were just talking about. But I want to thank you all for joining us today. I want to thank my bros, OG from Orange Grove 55, and for the first time ever joining us with a walk and talk, theme park conductor. Always a good time. We're having a ball here at Disneyland Park for the kickoff of the 70th anniversary celebration. Also got my babe Abby along for the walk as well. And again, I want to thank you all for joining us today. And as I always say in Disney Italiano fashion, stay safe, stay healthy, stay Disney. Italiano out.